What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Taiwan On. All right, so first and foremost, before we get started with the video today, I just want to take a minute, wish everybody out there a happy and healthy new year. Lord knows we all could use one with everything that's been going on the past couple of years. So I hope everybody's doing well out there and everybody stays safe. All right, and if you guys are just tuning into the channel now, what we do here is we make jigs and other lures, and we do some on-the-water application from time to time. So if that's something you're looking to get into and follow along with, maybe learn a couple things, go down, hit the subscribe button, and it's greatly appreciated. And to all my returning subscribers, big shout out to you guys. I greatly appreciate the support. All right, so for today's jig, what we're going to be tying up is a living rubber football jig. Wintertime here up in the Northeast, bass move out deep. It's cold. They're hard to catch. They don't want to move around too much. Great way to still catch them is dragging around a football jig nice and slow. And what we're going to be using today is living rubber. So living rubber has a great action, especially in cold water, and definitely makes a difference in help catching those lethargic fish. So I'll show you guys the material once we get down to the vise. So let's do that. Let's go down onto the vise and let's tie one on. All right, guys, so here we go. So the jig's in the vise. We got a 1/2 ounce football jig with that light wire 3/0 hook. It's a very finesse football jig. And the reason I like throwing a light wire hook is because football jigs are meant to be thrown out deep and dragged on the bottom. And with that light wire hook at the end of a long cast, you just get a much better hook set than with a thicker flipping style hook, for example. So that's why I like that light wire hook. So anyway, let's get started. Let's tie this one up. All right, so we're going to start with our thread base. And just throw some black nylon thread in here, 210 denier. Get my base like I normally do. And then I'm going to cut the tag end off. There we go. A couple more wraps. All right, so for today's material, we're going to use number 644, which is a living rubber skirt. This is a brown living rubber skirt. So, guys, living rubber is a little bit different than regular silicone, as I was saying. First of all, it's stretchy, kind of like rubber bands. That's what it reminds me of, actually, is little rubber bands all put together. And this really flares out underwater. I mean, it's got a much different action than silicone. Silicone definitely flares out underwater, but this is like very dramatically just flares out. It stands straight up as soon as it hits bottom. So very good in cold water. The littlest movement, and it has a really good action to it. So, all right, so I'm going to throw this first skirt on the top, and then as always, I'm going to throw it up top, make a couple wraps, pull it up a little bit, fold it over to measure, and make sure it's even. It's off a little bit. So getting this first one on is very important, nice and straight. And again, the living rubber is just a little bit different to work with. You got to be a little bit more careful with it. It does like to kind of bunch up or spread out because it's very rubbery. So let me see. It looks like a good. That's perfect. All right. So now we got the skirt on properly. We're going to spread it around. And again, I like to do half on the top, half on the bottom. We're going to throw 2 tabs of this on. Bring this over, make sure it's nice and even. There we go. Make sure it's spread out even. You don't want it bunched up, so this takes a little bit of time to work with. But once you get it, it should be good to go. You want to make sure it's nice and even. Bring it this way a little more. All right, perfect. So as you can see, we got our top part on, and it goes halfway around on each side. And then we start making our base. Wrap it nice and tight. Okay, perfect. Get a couple good tight wraps. Make sure it didn't move on us. Sometimes when you wrap the threads around and you pull down, when you put that pressure, it turns the skirt. So you got to be careful of that. Sometimes you got to counteract that by turning it the other way a little bit, because you'll get the skirt right where you want it, and then when you cinch it down a little bit, it'll twist on the jig, and then it'll be off-centered. So it's always good to double check it and fix it after you put a little pressure on it. And then you can always make a couple more wraps to kind of hold it in place. Good. All right. Now we're going to put our bottom one on. Same thing as I do with all the other skirts. Let me move the camera over a little bit. There we go. So I'll pull this out. I'll take my top skirt. I'll match these up. Pull it back this way. Now it's even. And then I'll make a couple wraps to trap it. All right. Good. Now we just want to work this around till it meets on both sides. Pretty easy jig to tie. It's just a little bit different material, so you got to get used to working with it. But as long as you make sure and take your time, make sure it's nice and even, you guys will come out with really nice jigs. All right, that's good. Now I'm going to make a few wraps. The one thing with the living rubber is when you start to cinch down, it really sinks down into the material. It's a little different than silicone. And make sure you don't catch any of those strands underneath there either. All right, that looks good. Now we're going to put a few strands of silicone into this jig just to add a little bit of color to it. So I'm going to grab our next material. All right, guys, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to throw in a few strands of this material. It's called Spotted Tabasco. It's number 370 on fishandskirts.com. And I really like this. It just gives a little character to the brown living rubber. Helps it pop a little more. So we're not going to throw the whole tab on. We're probably going to do probably 4 or 5 strands on the top. Let's do 5 and 5. We're going to do 5 strands on the top. So I counted out 5 strands. I'm going to pull this off. And then we're going to do 5 on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just to give it a little color. Okay. So here we are. Let's fix our material. Get everything nice and straight. Okay. Sometimes it likes to wrap up on itself. It'll all come out nice and even once we cut the tabs. So, all right. Just gotta make sure there we go. All right, good to go. Sorry guys, my thread got hung up. All right, so I'm gonna just take this 5 strands, put them right on the top here. Match them up, make sure they're even. Okay, make like 1 or 2 wraps. Kind of spread them out a little bit. And these you gotta, since it's only a couple of strands, you want to take your time and kind of spread them out evenly across the jig. So that's why it makes it easier too, doing half and half. I always like working, the top first and then the bottom, because especially with stuff like this, you only got to worry about working the top half of the jig, spreading it out evenly. Then you tie it down and then you work the bottom half. So it's a little time consuming, but it definitely pays off. All right, wrap those around. That's pretty good. Pretty good coverage. Straighten it out. There we go. All right, make a couple tighter wraps. And then we'll do the bottom here. Again, let's flip this around. Take our 5 strands and pull this out. Match them up. Lay it in there and make a couple wraps. And then again, we're just gonna spread these out. Just gives it a little pop. Especially that orange really comes through with the brown. All right, so I'm just working this around. All right. Move this one over just there. That looks pretty damn good. All right. Happy with that. All right, so now let's finish our collar. Again, I like to use these to hold it. I showed you guys these in the last couple videos. So what we'll do is we'll take this. Let me fix my camera here a little bit. Okay. Take this, wrap it around here. Especially with the Living Rubber, this helps big time. Because sometimes it's a little bit of a difficulty to work with. You wrap these around here, and then you can really work on, you know, getting the collar good. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to tighten everything up nice and tight. All right, now we got one more thing to do. So I don't want to totally finish my collar yet, because the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be tying in our V-guard right into the collar. So let me just get a decent base started. Okay, good. Here we go. All right, so now the V-guard is going to get tied right into the collar here. So what we're using is a little thin wire metal V-guard. Again, you don't want a big V-guard for these because, you know, you want to get a good hook penetration with that, whatchamacallit. You want to get good hook penetration at the end of that long cast. So we're just going to use one of these thin metal V-guards. And I'll show you guys how we're going to tie this in. Okay, guys, so the first thing we got to do before we tie this in is we need to modify this. So as you can see, it's got like a little question mark bend at the end of it. What we're going to do is straighten that out. So this way it makes it easier to tie it in. You'll see why in a second. But so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a split ring pliers that I got in my little kit over here. And I'm just going to bend this out a little bit. First, I'm going to take the bend out of it. Bend it straight. And then I'm going to bend it into like an L shape. Right at the end where it's already bent. Kind of like that. I'm going to push it down a little bit more with my finger. That's pretty much perfect. So you want it to look like that, like a 7. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little Loctite super glue and we're going to just put a little dab right here on the collar. There we go. That's it. Just a little dab there. That's going to really help hold it in place. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to hold this up here like this. And we're going to make sure it's centered with the hook and the eye of the hook. And then we're going to make a couple wraps. So I'm going to wrap around a few times. Okay. Good. Good. Now we're going to just double check it. Look at it from a couple different angles and make sure it's straight. Okay, it looks pretty good. And now we're going to, don't go too tight at first because then you'll throw it off. But go around, make sure you trap it, and then you work your way around. And then you can really start cinching it down. And then that Loctite super glue is also going to help hold the threads in place. And then we're going to still seal it with the Sally Hansen's as well. So it'll be nice and tight. Make sure you make a couple tight wraps. And then, so that's in there nice and tight. Okay. Let me back this up a little. You can see it, it's in there, it's not going anywhere. And then next thing we're going to do is our whip finish. That's why I like whip finishing by hand. Because with the tool, it's hard to make these big loops like I'm making. But with your fingers, you could do it much easier. And you know, you get used to this. You get better at it as you go. All right, there we go. Cinch that down. Make another one. Okay, cinch that down. Good. We're going to cut our slack off. Grab my scissors. All right, there we go. All right, so now our weed guard is tied in, and we got that thin light wire weed hook, which is perfect for one of these football jigs. You know, if you come across a piece of brush or something, it's definitely going to help out, but it's not going to, you know, mess with the hook set. But it definitely, you know, a lot of times you're fishing this around rock and hard bottom anyway. So, but definitely, if you come in contact with something, this will help out a little bit, but it's not going to mess with your hook set at all. So now that we have that tied in, we're going to take our Sally Hansen's and we're going to seal it. Here we go, Sally Hansen's. Work that around. Just be. And another thing that's good about these rubber things that I use is it really helps you put this on without getting any on the skirt, because sometimes when you get this on the skirt and it dries, it leaves like a white film and it doesn't look nice. So it really helps you get a good covering. So we'll let that sit for a second, and then I'm going to come back, and then we're going to finish this up. All right, guys, so we're back. So I just wanted to, the reason we took a little break there for a second is because I wanted to let the Sally Hansen's dry for a few minutes. And this way it holds the weed guard in there nice and tight and seals it. Because we got to put a little pressure on this now to bend it into place. So I like doing that, you know, better when, you know, the Sally Hansen starts to tack up a little bit more rather than when it's wet. So this way it holds it better in place. So, and what you want to do when you bend this is you want to come down to the bottom and put the pressure here. You don't want to push up here, because then it's going to, you know, kind of move this around a little bit. So you want to come down as deep as you can and kind of just put a little pressure down. And that's actually perfect, like that. So put the pressure down here. Try and get like below, trying to show you guys on camera. Trying to get like below the eye of the hook and pinch your finger in here and use that to put the pressure down, to put it in place. So, and then later on, you could cut this, you know, down to whatever length you want it. So then next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these off. All right. All right, guys, so now we're going to cut our skirt material. So first we'll cut our silicone material. There we go. We just got a few strands, again, just to give it some character. Add a little pop to it. All right, and then next we're going to cut our living rubber material. And cut this nice and slow. When you cut this material too, you want to put a little pressure on it. Pull it out, because it does like to stick together. So I like to put a little pressure on it and cut it nice and slow. And it'll actually pull apart. I notice it cuts much better that way than if you cut it really quick, especially if a couple pieces are sticking together. So again, I'll even switch hands, pull this out, and go really slow. Put a little pressure on it. You see how it just kind of pops into place. There we go. One more. I'm not used to cutting with my other hand. And there we go. And look at that. All right. All right. You could almost see on the camera the difference in the material between the silicone and the living rubber. I mean, this stuff has a lot of action to it. Looks amazing underwater. So let me take it out of the vise and give you guys a better look at it. So again, and sometimes you got to go through and make sure all these strands are separated. That's the main thing with the living rubber. The strands like to stick together, but as you can see, it's got a nice full skirt to it. Let me pull these apart. I want it to look nice on the camera for you guys. All right. And there you go. You got a nice living rubber with a little bit. You could see that green pumpkin, not green pumpkin, I'm sorry, the Tabasco skirt just barely shows through. It just gives it a little bit of character, but that's only 10 strands, guys, and look at it. You know, it gives it a lot of detail. It really shines through that living rubber. And I'm telling you, this sucker will get bit. These brown football jigs, Living Rubber, cold water. This is the deal. You know, these are great. And again, you got that light wire hook, and then we got our thin wire weed guard that we have tied in. So, you know, you get a nice good hook set with these. So, all right, guys. Hope you learned something. Maybe I showed you guys new jig that you haven't really seen before. So, again, if you like the video, go down, hit the like button, share it with some people. And if you haven't done so far, subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. All right, I'll see you guys next week. I think next week we're going to be doing some rabbit hair Ned rigs. So that should be a cool video. So it's something a little different that I'm sure a lot of guys haven't seen yet. All right, thanks for watching, guys.